In the chill of 1960, in a remote cave on Katsika Hill in northern Greece, a discovery emerged from stone and silence. It was buried deep within a limestone cavern, the walls streaked red by mineral veins and time. What they found embedded there, staring out from the rock, wasn't just a fossil. It was a face from the forgotten past, a cranium, heavy, hollow, and ancient, and what lay within it would go on to question everything we thought we knew about the human story. This was the Petralona skull, and it didn't belong neatly on any known branch of the human evolutionary tree. Before we go deeper into this mystery, don't forget to subscribe to Prehistoric Medievals. We explore the stories buried beneath time, and every subscriber helps bring ancient voices back into the light. Now, the Petralona cranium wasn't just old, it was strange. Its estimated age around 375, 0 years places it firmly in the Middle Pleistocene during a warm interglacial known as marine isotope stage 11. This period, some 400, 0 to 370, 0 years ago, brought warmth and stability across Europe, forests and grasslands spreading where ice once ruled. It was an era when early humans could move, thrive, and settle in new lands. And it's during this exact window that some early being entered the Petralona cave. Not just to pass through, but to live, to shape tools, to build fires, and to leave behind a skull that science still can't quite explain. At first glance, the skull seems almost Neanderthal, but then it isn't. The brow is massive, but inside it's hollow, not solid like in classic Neanderthals or our own Homo sapiens lineage. CT scans revealed a sprawling network of frontal sinus air-filled cavities inside the bone. These sinuses likely lightened the skull's weight, but their function may have gone further. Thermoregulation, vocal resonance, even social signaling, all are possible, but no other hominin, not even Homo erectus, had a brow like this. Subscribe to Prehistoric Medievals if you haven't already, because we're just getting started, and what comes next rewrites the story of human migration. Petralona sits at a unique crossroads in geography and time. Northern Greece wasn't just a cave-riddled outpost, it was a gateway, a natural land corridor connecting Africa, Asia, and Europe. During warm periods like MIS 11, when sea levels dropped and the Aegean basin was mostly dry land, hominins could walk across continents. And this specific skull, sitting halfway between Africa and the heart of Europe, could belong to one of the first to make that crossing. Its anatomy is even more curious, the cranial capacity over 200 cubic centimeters, well within the range of early Neanderthals and even Homo sapiens. The face is wide and massive, especially across the cheekbones. The vault of the skull is rounded, not sloped like Homo erectus. But the occipital terus ridge at the back is reduced, a sign of evolutionary progression. And yet, it doesn't look quite like anything that came before or after. Some paleoanthropologists have tried to name it Homo heidelbergensis, archaic Homo sapiens, even early Neanderthal, but each of those labels is incomplete. The Petralona skull carries traits from all of them and some from none. It's not just transitional, it's anomalous. A being that shouldn't exist the way it does in the place it does at the time it lived. When the skull was first discovered by a shepherd, it was almost an accident. Snow had blocked the entrance to a narrow cave, and curiosity drove the villagers to dig it open. What they found wasn't just a frozen landscape of stalactites and stonite, was a chamber of tools, ash, and bone. There, half buried in red limestone, was a skull, no jaw, but otherwise intact. Its stare locked in stone. It wasn't just the skull of a person, it was the echo of an entire evolutionary question. By the way, if this kind of deep prehistory fascinates you, now's the perfect time to hit that subscribe button. Join Prehistoric Medievals as we travel back through time, fossil by fossil. Initial dating placed Petralona at around 200, 0 years old, but as dating techniques improved stratigraphy, animal fossil correlations, and uranium series methods, a new estimate emerged, closer to 375, 0 years, and that shifted everything. Because it meant this skull was not just old, it was possibly older than the classic Neanderthals of Europe, perhaps even a precursor, or a sibling branch, or something else entirely. One of the most striking comparisons comes from thousands of miles away in Zambia. The Kabwe skull, sometimes called the Broken Hill or Rhodesian man, shows eerily similar features: heavy brow, large brain case, thick facial bones. It too occupies that strange in-between space in our lineage. And both Kabwe and Petralona may represent a once widespread population that hadn't yet diverged into the separate species we now name sapiens, Neanderthal, Denisovan. If that's true, it forces us to imagine a prehistoric world not of isolated lineages, but of blending, crossing, and overlap. A braided stream of human evolution, not a tidy tree. What makes Petralona especially compelling is how it bridges these gaps. Anatomically, it carries the robustness of Homo erectus, the cranial growth of Homo sapiens, and yet its brow massive, hollow, internally pneumatizides, uniquely its own. This structure may have served more than just biological purposes. In some theories, it was a social trait perhaps used in facial signaling, gender differentiation, or even as a thermal regulator for a large, active brain. And it is this blend of practical function and evolutionary improvisation that makes the Petralona skull so important. It wasn't just a hominin. It was part of an experimental anatomical answer to the pressures of climate, diet, terrain, and time. And perhaps it was one that didn't last. Don't forget subscribe to Prehistoric Medievals for the second part of this story, because what we'll explore next is even more mysterious. Petralona doesn't stand alone anymore. Just a few hundred kilometers south, another fossil emerged that might turn the timeline on its head. Apidema 1, found in a southern Greek cave, is now considered by some researchers to be the oldest Homo sapiens fossil ever found outside Africa. It's dated to over 210 years ago, and it looks nothing like Petralona. Which raises the most haunting question of all: who were the people that came before us, and what happened to them? They say history is written by the victors, but prehistory is written in bone, in stone, and in the silent spaces between species. When we left off, we had just met Apidema 1, a fossil cranium found in southern Greece. It's fragmentary, yes, but it's unique gracile, rounded, lacking the projecting brow ridges and facial structure of Neanderthals. Radiometric dating puts it at more than 210 years old, and if its interpretation holds, Apidema 1 isn't just another early human. It could be the earliest Homo sapiens ever discovered outside of Africa. If that's true, then it shatters the conventional timeline. It pushes back the earliest Homo sapiens presence in Europe by more than 150 years. And it means that modern humans may have entered the continent not once in a clean, sweeping migration, but in waves, some early, some late, some successful, others fading into extinction. This is why you need to subscribe to Prehistoric Medievals. These are not just stories. These are revelations that reshape how we see ourselves, and they're still unfolding. Apidema 1 and the Petralona skull were found in the same country less than half a millennium apart in evolutionary time. Yet they tell two completely different tales. Petralona massive, archaic, possibly Neanderthal related. Epidemalite, modern, possibly Homo sapiens. Two skulls, two evolutionary experiments, one land. One question: did they ever meet? Apidema 2, found in the same cave as Apidema 1 but in a higher, later sedimentary layer, gives us yet another twist. It dates to around 170 years ago and bears features more closely aligned with Neanderthal's strong brow ridges, mid-facial projection. So, within a single site in southern Greece, we have two vastly different human types, separated by 40 years. One modern, one archaic. Which came first? And more importantly, which survived? The evidence suggests that southern Europe, particularly Greece, wasn't just a stopping point. It was a theatera stage on which multiple human lineages played out their destinies. Petralona may have represented a basal Neanderthal type, rooted in Europe but still carrying echoes of Homo erectus. Apidema 1 might have been an early Homo sapiens pushing into new territory, only to be replaced by Neanderthals who arrived later, better adapted to the cooling climate. But what if the replacement wasn't absolute? Remember to subscribe to Prehistoric Medievals if you haven't already, because what we're about to explore might be the key to understanding not just who we were, but who we still are. Genetic studies from European fossil sites like Cima de los Huesos in Spain now reveal that Neanderthals and Denisovans shared a common ancestor over 400 years ago. And intriguingly, the population structure in Europe during that time was anything but simple. Lineages diverged, merged, and diverged again. Some lasted, others disappeared, leaving only fragments in DNA and bone. Could Petralona be one of those ghost lineages? A branch of humanity that left no living descendants but left behind a fossil as a witness? It's possible. Some anthropologists now believe Petralona represents a regionally adapted hominin, not quite Neanderthal, not quite erectus, but something in between. A form shaped by the specific environments of the Aegean and Balkan regions. Its unique internal brow structure, its cranial vault, its facial bone saw point to a population that was innovating in its own way. Surviving, adapting, perhaps even encountering others. And what if Apidema 1 wasn't an outsider? What if its presence in southern Greece wasn't the beginning of a failed migration but the sign of a larger pattern? A pattern in which Homo sapiens moved in and out of Europe in pulses, adapting, disappearing, returning, sometimes merging with local populations, sometimes replacing them. The old narrative Homo sapiens evolves in Africa, migrates out, replaces everyone isn't wrong, but it's incomplete, because now, with every fossil unearthed, a new picture emerges. One of overlap, coexistence, hybridization, a braided stream, not a straight line. Subscribe to Prehistoric Medievals to follow this story as it grows, because these are not the last secrets the caves of Greece will give up. When we compare Petralona to other fossils like the Kabwe skull in Zambia or Jebel Arhoud in Morocco, we see something astonishing. Similar traits, similar cranial volumes, similar transitions. These weren't isolated populations, they were part of a broader Afro-Eurasian web, a network of early humans testing evolutionary strategies shaped by climate, geography, and chance. And climate was everything. During marine isotope stage 11, when Petralona lived, the environment was unusually stable. Warm forests, open grasslands, rich in game ideal for hominin expansion. Fossil evidence from nearby suggests oak and beech trees, horses, deer, rhinos, and large bovines roamed the landscape. This wasn't a harsh world, it was an opportunity, and Petralona's people took it. Excavations at the site have revealed stone tools, traces of fire, fossilized animal hair, even bits of charred wood. Whoever these people were, they weren't just surviving. They were living, creating, shaping their world. They hunted large prey. They crafted tools. They made choices. They weren't mindless brutes. They were human, just not in the way we are. And yet they were close. What happened to them? That remains unclear. Climate change, competition from incoming Homo sapiens, genetic absorption. The truth is, extinction isn't always violent. Sometimes it's a quiet fatty-owned population blending into another, disappearing into the genome. And in that sense, Petralona may not be gone. It may be a whisper in our bones, a piece of us. That's why the Petralona skull matters, not just for its age, not just for its strange, hollow brow, but because it refuses to be placed. It's not a relic, it's a crossroads. A memory of a time when the human story was still being written in overlapping lines. As science progresses through genetics, radiometric dating, advanced 3D imaging will get closer to knowing who Petralona was, whether it was a Neanderthal precursor, an archaic Homo sapiens, or something else entirely. But even now, it stands as a challenge to everything simple, everything clean, everything certain about evolution. So the next time someone tells you we came from Africa, moved to Europe, and took over, remember Petralona, remember Apidema, remember the caves, and the people who once lived in them. People who are not quite like us, but not quite different either. And if you've made it this far, you know this story isn't just about ancient skulls. It's about us, who we are, where we came from, and how many forgotten faces once paved the road that led here. Subscribe to Prehistoric Medievals for more stories like this one, because the past isn't gone, it's buried, and it's waiting to be found.